Basha Ferdinand.
All right, okay. Audio team is on point. Thank you, Bree. Appreciate it. Yes, mandatory clicker. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you all. I was able to attend the last gathering over in Tampa at Hotel Hyatt where I was based. So shortly thereafter, I get a text from Bree like, hey, so the next theme is innovation, and we're thinking about you. And I was like, I hesitated at first, but I was like, you know what? Yes, let's do this. So thank you all for being here. Excited to share space with you this morning. So I just wanted to go over, just quickly, just to introduce myself. Well, what I will be speaking about today is innovation in motion, how to spark creativity in every day. That's kind of what the working title is, and I'll go more into that here shortly. So a little bit about me. I'm a Tampa native. On the Tampa side, I still reside there. I know, like a unicorn at this point. If you meet a Tampa native in the wild, people are like, "Oh man, I've never met anyone from here." It's like we're still here. So that's me. Went to UCF for school, studied event management there. So didn't go far, but go Knights for those who identify as that as well. I have a 2-year-old son named Liam, and also shout out to my husband, Anthony, who's with me today, filming. Thank you. Hey, honey. And yes, I love to travel. That's, one of the ways I love spending my time and attending local live music events. Music has kind of been integrated in my entire family growing up. I played piano and then went into dance and then somehow ended up planning events. It happens. But I'm still surrounded by it. So that's a little bit of my personal story. And then from a professional perspective, as Bree mentioned, I do cultivate experiences and events. Lately, it's specifically been in the tech and innovation realm, but it does blend into some nonprofit work here of recently. But here are some of the brands I've been able to partner with and produce activations for. Most people, at least from a local perspective, are familiar with Synapse, which is kind of that bottom right photo there. And my role stems around just finding amazing, talented people, coordinating the logistics, but also one of my favorite moments is being able to pass the mics to folks to give them an opportunity to speak on stages who otherwise may not have had the opportunity to share their story, to share their idea, to share their innovation with the community and with the world and see what that translates into for further opportunities for them. So most recently, as Bree mentioned, she met me in the summer as I was kicking off a new brand called Control and Create. I am now wearing a title of founder, and so I'll share more about what this is later, but it is launching here in St. Pete on April 10th. I'll share more details later on in the date as we get to that. But in short, it is a gathering for creative professionals. So yes, please save the date, but I'll have more details towards the end on what that is and how you can get involved. All right, so to kick things off, I would just like to set the tone with just a high-level definition. I don't like to assume we're all on the same page as far as what innovation is, as we know it could have multiple definitions. But we'll just start with this as a working definition for today, which is innovation is an opportunity to introduce something new or make changes to anything established. And at the core of it, that's just all what it is. No matter what you look at or what you define as innovation, at the core, this is ultimately what it is. So I want you to kind of think in your own mind, just to yourself, what that could look like for you and what is that showing up or what is your variation that you're familiar with that with. And then we're going to redefine it. So what I like to do, because I feel like a lot of people, especially in conversations, have their own consumptions about innovation, and that's why I want to start with that baseline definition. But here are some myths I often hear in conversations when I'm with folks. People automatically think it's technology related. It's not. It doesn't have to be. There are a lot of technological innovations and things, obviously, that we see on the market now, especially with AI and all these things emerging, but doesn't necessarily mean it's innovative. I've seen plenty of solutions and things that have come out that's a new technology, and it's just like, we already have that. It's just another rebrand, another model, and that's okay, but it's not innovative. It doesn't require a big budget. I think a lot of people see, especially depending on where you work, you see these huge campaigns and huge announcements, or think if I really want to disrupt the industry, I need this huge budget, and sometimes you can start in a smaller, more localized manner. And so I just wanted to set that tone too, that money isn't always a factor. And then last, it isn't reserved for creative geniuses. I know we have the Elon Musks of the world and, the Mark Zuckerbergs and people who are publicly known for being creative geniuses. And it's like, but you don't have to have those titles and have to have all those accomplishments under your things to be innovation or to spark innovation within your own realm. So as I said at the bottom here, most innovation is incremental. It's small changes, small movements, small disruptions that over time, compounded, can make a huge impact in multiple industries, verticals, and even in your personal realms. So here's why it matters. And I'm looking down at my phone because I have my notes here, so I'm not being rude. But most of us, well, before I start with that, how many of you would identify as either an entrepreneur, self-employed, whether you're a freelance contractor? Okay, perfect. And how many of you work within teams, maybe larger or local companies here? Okay. And how many are you just figuring out? You don't know. You're in the limbo. Okay, good. Safe space. Depends on the day of the week. But depends on my answer to this question. All the above, yes. Ask me next week. So I come from a corporate background, working within a larger team, and most recently have started my own event management company and things. So I understand and speak from both perspectives, and that's how I kind of catered these talking points to appeal to both. Just so you can know that, again, innovation and things can come from both of those realms. So again, here's why it matters. Creatives, we're constantly being pressured to stay on top of the latest trends. I don't know how many of you may feel that within your own work silos. It's like, oh, I have to adopt this new platform. I have to adopt this new resource. I need to stay relevant. I need to continue constantly evolving myself just to maintain clients or maintain work or stay on top of the trend. And a lot of times that could be a lot of pressure when you're just trying to create and stay in a creative flow, but also feel the pressure to constantly evolve and constantly change. But at the same time, innovation is what keeps us relevant, but there's a way to do that within balance without burnout. So some of the reasons why it matters here, to break broken patterns and systems. A lot of what you see created or is deemed as innovative is because it was just simply solving a problem. It came up with a solution, and it disrupted the industry or their current workflow. Innovation and adopting certain tools over time can help you stand out in saturated markets. We know as creatives, there's a lot of competition in a good ways, but I think if you can hone in on your niche and what your messaging is, you can stand out in a creative way. And then innovation also helps us increase efficiencies. Sometimes we know time is everything. The quicker you can get something done, but you also want to put out good quality work. So finding tools and resources to help you marry the two together is what's important in doing that. So like I mentioned, when I first put this talk together, I wanted to, at first I was like, I'm going to go macro. I'm going to think about how can we take over the world? How can we disrupt our industry? And I'm like, let me just peel it back a little bit. And so I wanted to curtail this to specifically focus on you. So as I'm going through this, I want you to think about your current workflow, your current pipeline, what you do in your day-to-day, and potentially how these next steps can support that, change that, evolve that, and hopefully help you to spark innovation within your own life. So here's a little playbook, some takeaways that I've been experiencing with, and hopefully that you can adopt the same. So let's start with workflow. I bring this one up a lot because it's something we do every day, whether we have it formally structured, organized, templatized, whatever. We all have our workflow and do things in our own way. So one of the best things to do that, if you don't know how to verbalize that or communicate what your workflow is, just look for repeated tasks, patterns, or even bottlenecks that come up in your everyday work. Here's some examples that I know come up from clients I've worked with. If you resonate with any of these, it's just a raise of hands in your own work. You produce that thing, you want to get it approved, but then it has to go to like 5 other people, and then you don't know which one was the latest version of the feedback that you were supposed to go forward with. All these things happen. And constantly over time, that can get frustrating. It can cause, your head to hurt, approval delays, unclear feedback, all these things. And these are just some. There's a full gamut of bottlenecks and problems within our workflow that can become disruptive over time. So here's, like I said, in the beginning, the goal is to look for those repeated tasks, patterns, bottlenecks, things that come up for you in your everyday, and ask yourself, what can you remove, automate, or simplify? What's one small incremental thing? Maybe it's just even how to better manage your email inbox. which is something I'm still working on. I have all the folders. Do I put those items in the folders? Not all the time, but I'm working on it. There are other things you can do, again, just depending on what your flow and what your creative outlet is. Just start here as a way to innovate your workflow. And I promise over time, with small, consistent, integral changes, you'll begin to see a change. And sometimes, and what I work with too, my husband and I talk about this a lot, is not being married to one workflow or tool or system over time. Be open to evolving that. Be open to trying out new systems. And just see how it might work. And if you need to revert back, that's fine, but at least you tried to automate some of these things as much as possible to get them out of your head, to get them from being so manual and mundane. So like I said, here's some possible solutions: template systems, structured brainstorming, creative batching projects together is another way to do that. And reevaluate your tech stack. That's kind of the realm I live in. I'm always exploring a new project management system or something of that nature. Sometimes it is a time suck, but the goal is always to become more efficient in that realm. So like I said, one of the things you can think about is what are some of the creative processes that consistently slow you down and what drains your energy, and just start there. Like, again, just making those small incremental changes to one or two of those areas can drastically improve your workflow in that regard. Next is innovate your creative input. I love this space because a lot of times I associate this with community gatherings such as this. This is a part of a creative input. You're pouring back into yourself. You're connecting with peers and like-minded individuals. You're listening to folks like me to say, hey, what are some tools or strategies I can apply to my own realm and get kind of poured back into, so that way you can ultimately increase your productivity and outflow from there. So some of the ways you can do that, and what I've been fortunate to balance in over the years, is this cross-pollination. So given that my prior experience has been in the hospitality and event management industry, recently been able to work with tech startups and founders, I'm constantly tapping into other industries, hearing about what they're working on, what's the latest in their realm, and then through those stories and hearing what challenges or opportunities exist in other markets allows me to kind of apply those things to my own, and it's just good to kind of ideate and collaborate from there. Stay in community with other creatives. This is obviously a great one. You're here, so you're already doing it. Kudos to you. But tell your friends that this is an important way to get poured back into, to tap into your creative resources. I know there's other tools that are out there. A lot of people are familiar with the book, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. That's another great tool, a resource if you want to tap into that. She speaks on journaling and just other day-to-day best practices to kind of stay in your constant creative flow, and so that you can continue, like I said, to produce high volume, especially in the realm that we do. It can sometimes get draining, and you can find yourself doing redundant work, and you don't want to do that. So to stay fresh, stay on top of things, be mindful of your creative input and what you pour into yourself. This last piece is kind of the realm that I specialize in curating experiences and gatherings for different folks in the community. Create moments that feel new. I was speaking with someone earlier, and they were talking about certain aspects of their world that kind of gets redundant over the time. You know, you kind of do the same old. The client wants the same thing. The creative brief kind of looks the same. You find yourself like copy, paste, delete, do it again. And over time, that can kind of feel mundane and dragged out. But what you can do, especially from an experiential component, always think of your end user. Keep that person in mind. Like, who are you creating for? Who are you building for? And even if it is yourself, how would you want your ideal audience to interact, let's say, for example, with your website or your brand or your product? Like, what is that ending feeling or emotion that you want them to leave with after experiencing your work, after experiencing your art? And have that intentionality going into it as you're building, as you're designing, as you're collaborating with your teams, to see how that can translate to an experiential component. I know a lot of times we see this in static content being converted into interactive moments, immersive tools, or like augmented reality. We see that kind of being the new term for immersive and experiential. But really, I think the more you can tap into the five senses of taste, see, hear, smell, how can those components translate into the work you're creating, is the more you can further dive into this experiential moment. It's, the term, I think, even of recently of experiential marketing has become more on the rise and the horizon. But there is some nuances to that to think about how does that go into the build and design of what you're doing and accessing that on a daily basis. So all that to say, innovation just starts with one shift, one action that you can implement in your day-to-day today. So I kind of want you to think about that. Like, as you leave here, what is something I can change within my present day that might be a challenge for me? Because what I see often, oh, somebody needs to change this. Somebody should really do something about that. And oftentimes we look for external people to solve our own personal challenges and things within ourselves, when really we can be the ones to spark that innovation. We can be the ones ourselves to, if we just start with our own workflow and see what that bottleneck can happen to other people, then it expands to your team. Then it expands to your company-wide. Then it can expand to your clientele and people that you work with, and just those small nuances of changes and intentionality and what you bring together and what you curate is how innovation is sparked. Remember, it doesn't have to be huge macro moments and huge product launches and huge budgets. It really just starts with you solving a problem. What is the problem that currently exists within your life, whether it's professional or personal, that's up to you, and then what small incremental changes can you do today to do that? So I'll share more. I kind of hinted to it earlier with Control and Create, but that is kind of my birth of my innovative journey. So in building tech conferences and entrepreneurial journeys here in the local area for the past 5 or 6 years, I noticed that there wasn't something on a consistent or large-scale basis that existed currently for creative professionals here. Like, yes, there are great meetups, there are great community hubs, but I wanted to further hone in and collaborate those communities together to say, hey, how can we partner together? How can we further show the density of creative talent that we have in our markets? How can we attract the Adobes and the Microsofts of the world to come to our region to say, look who's here, look what talent you can work with, look at the agencies that you can partner with to work on your creative projects or your next film work. And so that's kind of how my vision for Control and Create is deemed to be. It's going to start as a one-day conference, as I mentioned earlier, here at, what's the name of the venue? Coastal Creative. Thank you. Yes. Blank break up here. It's going to be at Coastal Creative. For those of you who aren't familiar, is a virtual production studio, but also event space. And they have huge LED screens and tons of ways for you to kind of get immersed into creativity. And so we're going to use that to be the backdrop of this medium. And through that, you'll be able to come, join, and connect with other people. We'll have a mix of these type of activations, all with the goal of showing the density of creative talent, giving you an opportunity to upskill, kind of spark that innovation, as I mentioned earlier, within your own workflow. I want this to be an opportunity where you can play and meet the faces of the tools and software that you use on a daily basis, whether that's from a project management tool, whether that's from editing software, whatever that hub or medium is. We're inviting them to come and kind of display and show some activations to connect with their ideal users eventually or potentially, and then ultimately it's just to connect with other people. So that, that's why our initial conversation of connecting with Bree was, hey, you already have this amazing community that you're bringing together on a regular basis. How can we partner to make sure you guys are aware of this, that you can tap into it as well, that you can come, learn, grow, thrive, and as I mentioned, spark that innovation within your own self. So these are some of the things we're going to have. I want to end it with an artist showcase, because I think a lot of times at events or large-scale conferences you go to, sometimes it's just somebody talking at you for hours. It's panel after panel. It's keynote after keynote. And by the end of it, you're drained and you just want to go home and not talk to anybody. But I wanted to create an opportunity for people to actually interact with the artists and the creative work that we're going to be talking about throughout the day. So we're going to end it with an artist showcase. So whether that's digital art, whether it's physical art, music, talent, comedy. Now that I know Matt here, we might have to talk. Matt, who knows? knows, do some improv, but to really just experience it in an immersive way, because I don't just want to talk about it. Like, I want people to really engage with it and touch, feel, and all the things. So this is just a QR code. It'll take you to a form, so that way if you want to stay in the know, if you want to get plugged in, whether you want to volunteer, partner, speak, we're going to have all those details rolling out soon at the top of the year. So if you want to get plugged in, or you're just like, hey, I just want to know when things are being announced and stay in the queue, feel free to scan this code here. Fill out the form, and then that way you can join our community list, and we can get that plugged and going from there. So I definitely wanted to, so again, this is my creative medium. This is what I'm doing to innovate and kind of disrupt the industry, just from challenges and things I'm hearing locally in our region. But of course, I don't want to build this in a silo. I don't want to assume that I know all the problems. I don't want to assume that I have all the solutions. So this is why partnering with groups like you all and a few others. I also sit on the board of the American Advertising Association, so I'm getting that input as well to say, what does our region really need? Who are the voices we want to hear from? What experiences do we want to cultivate? And I'm just a curator of bringing that together. So feel free to also stay connected with me on socials. My personals, I go by Basha Bonet. Bonet is my middle name. It was more catchy, right? It just has a better vibe. Basha Bonet, I think so. Control and Create. You can follow us on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok as well. And then if you want to email the team directly, that is the email for Control and Create if you want to further get involved in what we have building. So that is all for me for now. Thank you all so much. Would love to open it up if anyone has any questions or just any thoughts share as you've been thinking through your own creative journey that you want to share with the room, maybe something that's worked for you. Just creating space for that, if need be. Oh. Yes?
My favorite part, running around taking the mic. Thank you for that, by the way. You mentioned structured brainstorming as a solution. What does that mean to you, and how does it look like in your work?
Yeah, so it can have multiple meanings and look like different variations for different people. But for me, I like to kind of sit down and I'm a pen to paper person when I'm brainstorming. Sometimes I know some people use other tools, but really I just start with, okay, what challenge or problem am I serving, or what outcome do I need to achieve? And I kind of give myself some time blocking methods to do that. I've been experimenting with time blocking in my schedule more recently, and kind of solving through, okay, I'm just going to write through okay, here's what all the problems, here's what all the challenges are. Then I'll spend another time block just kind of ideating all the solutions and doing some research to see what I can find in the market. Is there something that currently exists, or is it something that I need to create and build out within my own workflow and my own team? And then the third process goes into how to build that out. What would that look like from a timeline perspective, or what resources do I need to tap into to do that? Do I need to partner with another person? Do I need an intern? Do I need funds to do it? What are the resources needed to solve the challenges and whatever solution I identified to bring that to fruition? So that's kind of how that structured brainstorming looks from my end.
Thank you for this. This is awesome, and I'm really excited about the event that you're planning on April 10th.
Thank you.
My question is, with this sort of space, when we're talking about creativity and innovation in tech, it's pretty common. You'll see people who are in advertising, marketing, design. But are there any sort of industries or just groups, fields in the community that you're hoping to see more of and maybe get involved with this sort of event?
Yeah, again, I want to have a mix of, and that's a great question. So to start off, some of the industry niches, at least that we'll be curating content for in the beginning phases, is to your point, yes, there's going to be the graphic designers, the animators, things of that nature. We're also going to have a strong track and focus on photography and videography. As you can imagine, they have a heavy tech stack and hardware and software tools that they're building, so I want to make sure that there's some best practices centered around that. And then the third bucket that we'll start to identify is that on music production. So those that either do writing, singing, that create. My husband's a music producer, so he's kind of like my personal plug into, okay, what are you doing again? And he tries to talk to me and tells me all the technical things. I was like, I have no idea, but come to this thing. Hopefully you find your people. So that's how we're starting, at least with year one, and kind of collaborating people within those buckets. Not to say that that's the end all be all. There will be some one-off topics that go into more, that cater towards professional teams or others in their creative realm, but that's kind of what the niche is for this year. But great question. Thank you. Yeah.
I love this so much. I feel like there is so much fear with creatives and art world, like what's tech gonna do to us and is it gonna take jobs? So
Yeah.
I love that you're combining these two things.
Yeah.
My question for you is, I know it's probably like picking your favorite child, but what would be an event that you like maybe was your favorite that you did for either a corporation? I just want to hear a little bit about like a specific activation that you loved and were super hyped up about.
Yeah, great question. So it's my favorite for different reasons, but I'll explain. So I got invited I was still working with a corporate team at the time, and we got invited to host a 3-day innovation festival in Orlando. They were calling it Meta Center Global Week, and it was all about things centered around the metaverse and art and how is it all going to work together, and a lot of it was above my head. I had no idea, but I like it because it was something that really challenged me professionally. First of all, that was my first time doing a 3-day event for like 5,000 people. And my particular role within that large scale of an event was the program. So I had to cultivate all of the topics, all of the speakers, all of the things. And you can imagine across 3 days and multiple stages, I think we had like over 100 speakers that I had to like coordinate and put together. But what I enjoyed from it the most was, one, it stretched me professionally. It taught me more about my workflow, because during that, I kind of took too much onto my plate. I didn't know how to, one of my challenge points, I don't know if anyone else resonates this, is delegating sometimes. It's like, I want it done right, so I unintentionally just absorb all the work, and then I get to the end of it, and I'm like, okay, this is too much. So that taught me to further delegate things sooner, how to activate for myself in that area. But no, just seeing what we did from an activation perspective. I mean, we had drone shows at the end of it. We had Sony come in and bring in some of their immersive tech. So it was really just cool to see that. That was the first time that type of event had happened in Orlando at that time. And so just being part of it, being able to display the creatives' work and seeing what cool tech was coming on the horizon. Some things that we're just now seeing being produced publicly today was kind of mentioned at that event. So to kind of get like a first hands-on experience was kind of cool. So thanks for that question. Yeah.
I've got a question, actually.
Yes.
You are a multi-hyphenate, right? Like, you are a community builder, you're an entrepreneur, you have worked in corporate spaces, now you have your own business. So
Yeah.
you've got lots of hyphenates. One is also a mom. So, like, how have you found space? I mean, you talk so much about your workflows and how you're building out time for yourself. So as a multi-hyphenate, like, how are you finding ways to innovate that also incorporate like your life as well as the entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial spirit you obviously have?
Yeah, great question. It's an ever-evolving process. I can't say I've perfected it. Most people I've been talking to recently, they're like, listen, it's not about balance, it's about harmony. Because at different phases of your life, and depending on what you're working on, as well as with motherhood, something is always going to require more of your attention than others in certain phases. So trying to walk through as if, oh, how can I balance it all? It's just like, no, let me just find harmony in whatever moment I'm in and what that looks like. So like this week, for example, last night I had a pitch night. This morning I'm here with you all. Tonight I have a holiday party. Then something else after that. Then you have to your point, carve in family time on top of all that. So it really, it's kind of doing that strategic brainstorming, but for my personal life. And it's just like, okay, what needs my priority this day or even within this time block? Let me give myself heads down, dedicated, focused time to that. Close all the other tabs just so I can zone in and focus. And through that that has been the greatest thing for me to help me evolve my workflow, is like really having structured time blocking systems. I've been also trying some new like AI project management tools to try to automate some of those day-to-days, because I do wear multiple hats. And then also I have to practice what I preach. Like, I can't say I'm a community builder and then not go to the community events and not show up for the people I claim to work with. So it's a bit of that, just being getting out of producer mode and being into consumer mode, which I was talking about, that input piece. So that's something that has been a priority for me of late, is finding ways to pour back into myself. Going out in nature has been my favorite, even if it's just sitting on the patio for 10, 15 minutes. It's just like, that's my personal reset. Put on your your favorite playlist, whatever you need to do, and plug back in. Because again, most of us always wear multiple hats. We're multi-hyphenate people. And so, yes, at any given moment, you're toggling between different brains, different roles, different titles within a given time block. But as much as you can, to try to be one for a subset at a time and then go to the next is kind of what's been helping me, at least from a mental capacity lately.
I'm not sure this is a good question.
Yeah, go for it.
I play music for children, and I do story times on like YouTube, and I teach art classes in the library system, and I'm having trouble trying to figure out how this, which seems like really big and corporate and tech heavy, relates to me, but I'm sure it does. I just can't find the connection.
Yeah, no, great question. So, do you do what you do? Is it structured like as your own business? Are you probably with the venues that you work at? So it's all you. In libraries, that's awesome. What particular age group do you work with?
All different age groups. Like
Okay.
I do story times and play ukulele for like preschoolers.
Do you want to give her the mic so everyone else can hear it?
I only want to talk to you, nobody else.
Yeah.
I play ukulele, and I do story times at libraries. I do classes for little kids like watercoloring or jewelry making or zine making, and then I do that through to adulthood as well. I mostly partner with libraries or other organizations that want to hire me, but other than automating like harassing librarians or like venues or publishers that will let me read their books online, like I don't know how this relates. I'm sure it does.
No, it's a great question. Yeah, so again, I wouldn't think of it as like, okay, well, there's not a technical solution. There's not a technical component to what I do. But maybe it's just outsourcing some of the things that you currently do. Like maybe instead of booking all the venues on your own or, talking with the parents one-on-one, like maybe that's something you can outsource to another individual to kind of help create that for you. It does, initially, it does. But, okay, so then that's potentially where technology can come in. If you're interested in exploring that, having somebody support with, I don't know, the appointment book, having a software tool that can source with appointment booking, the follow-up, the generating of the automated messages or reminders that need to be sent out. Like you said, you're hounding the venues to say, hey, like, what's the schedule? What's this? Like, you can potentially tap into a technical or AI resource to help with that. And then you only come in for, like, the in-person meetings or the really high touch points and just the music that you actually play for the children. So that could be. The bigger question, I would say, just what are some of the things you maybe wish you didn't have to do, or maybe what are some of the things that feel monotonous, like, if I just didn't have to do this today, or if I could outsource that to somebody else, and try to be creative to look at what are maybe free ways to do that, or maybe what's a technical tool that could potentially take that over. Internships are always a great resource, especially people that might be looking to get into early childhood development. They might want to have an insight look to, okay, here's how this provider of musical talent who works with libraries, who works with children from multiple ages, who plays the ukulele, like what can I glean and learn from that and make it into a shared learning experience, but now you're taking some of the workload off your plate. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's kind of how I would hack it. Again, I would have to deep dive further into what you do and what your current workflow looks like, but that's some initial points. Yeah.
No, that's great. Thank you so much for finding that way, right? Because we always say, like, it may not make sense, but there's a way there. There is always a connection to what you do. Mm-hmm. And it's not taking the word exactly as you see it, it's finding the broader context to your point. So I think personally, I've loved free interns. I use them at my job to help delegate some of my work.
Yeah.
There's always someone out there looking for a shot. So
exactly.
Let's give a shout out to Basha. Thank you so much for being here today.